Hey guys, DifferentFight here. What's up everyone? Welcome to today's deck profile. We're trying out something new. I decided to, try a different approach to deck profiling where you still see my hands and the cards here on the playmat, but you still see me through a webcam, so it's not going to be the usual good quality that you're used to from this camera here. But I feel like it's still nice to kind of get that bonus perspective of the actual player, I guess. So, today is the release date of Clan Collection Volume 1 and 2, and unfortunately, I would have loved to do a box opening today, but unfortunately in Europe, majority of shops have had it delayed, and so I think my delay is about a week long, so I will be doing box openings for the product next week once it finally comes in, but unfortunately right now, we just gotta keep waiting, I guess. Luckily, since it's only delayed by a week, at least we'll have the product by BRO Premium, so at least that's very good. And so today I would like to introduce to you the deck that I've been using by far the most ever since Clan Collection dropped, which is Premium DP with Daikaiser. This deck honestly is a little bit of a struggle for me because I love it so much and I'm playing it so much that I can't play any other premium decks. I literally, every time I sit down to play premium, I just want to play this deck again. I also want to give special shoutouts to Ashwin and Danimus, who are two Dimension Police mains on my Discord that I've been able to bounce ideas from and discuss, DP in premium in general together with. And there's some really cool ideas that I managed to adapt into this list. And I'm pretty sure me and Ashwin are playing almost, if not card for card identical lists, because we were testing something very similar and then he sent me his list and I was like, hold on a second, that's a very interesting tech. Tried it out myself, works like butter. So let's talk about it. So for this deck profile, we're going to be basically just doing the deck itself because I've shown you the mulligan before, and I really want to focus especially on the new aspects of the deck because we just did a recent one after the ban list last month, and I've taken a lot of you guys' critiques into consideration as well and made sure to improve the list while I was testing out the new cards as well. So first things first, let's get started with the main deck here. Of course, we play 4 copies of our main grade 3, which is of course Dailiner. So Dailiner, of course, nothing new here. He gives plus 10k shield to all of your grade 3s, and if you ride him and you going first, you can count +1, soul blast 1. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck and add a normal unit from among them to your hand, and if it's a grade 3, give it your Vanguard plus 20k in a crit, which makes you just like, it's possible for you to ride up and swing with pressure already without even striding, which is really good. And of course, he is the main card in the deck purely because of the fact that he gives a 10k shield to all of our grade 3s, and with the inclusion of Heal Guardians, that is a very, very welcome thing. Also, don't mind my hands. My hands are very sensitive when it comes to the winter and like the cold periods, so they break up really easily, and I apologize, it's not going to be a pretty sight, but I'll try to hide them as much as possible. Next, of course, 4 copies of the Daizorus. Daizorus is still a staple in my opinion because this enables you to have multiple drive check start turns, being able to resign next gallop with extra drive checks as well. And it's just a great card in being able to plus so much. Like, I've heard players that can pass on the next gallop turn with like 17 cards in hand because of basically this card. So I think Daizorus is very important. I've explained it many times in the past as well. I'm also, on a side note, very happy that one of the best players in Europe, Kalen Fallon, who topped BSFO standard in Europe last, when we had BSFO, actually he picked up my list and he picked up DP in premium and he's been enjoying it a lot. So I think multiple people can vouch for how fun DP is in premium right now. So more similarities to what you've seen before. We're still running 4 die arms. We are currently in a much slower format. The current format in premium feels way slower than it used to, and that's a great thing because die arm now is even more effective because so many decks can just drop to 10 cards in hand on their first stride turn and then they pass back to you and it's like, oh well, don't mind me, plus 60k to the front row, shake my hand, GG's. So he's still a very important card, and just overall just insanely good grade 3. Gives you so much value in just one card, and after you use him you can intercept with him thanks to Geomaglus's skills, so it's just so good. And of course the new addition, so I'll be using my Japanese proxies for this because of course I don't have my English cards yet, is the 3 Daikaisers. So just for the sake of it, let's go through Daikaiser's effects just so you know what they are. So first things first, when he's 35k power or higher on the Vanguard circle, gains an extra critical, and when he's on the Vanguard circle or front row rearguard circle, if you drive check a grade 3 at the end of that battle, if your opponent guarded with 1 sentinel in that battle, so it can be 1 sentinel plus a bunch of other cards, but the only way to dodge this skill is if they guard with 2 sentinels. They don't have to activate both, but they can guard with 2 or more. But if they placed 1 sentinel only, or like 1 sentinel and some like other cards, then you can activate it. And what you can do is Candlemass 1 and deal your opponent's Vanguard 1 damage. And at the end of that turn, if this unit is on the rearguard circle, put it to your soul. And if you ride over him, then you can call him to the front row rearguard circle and gain the magic gift marker Force to your Vanguard circle. So what is the function of Daikaiser in Premium? So we don't really ride him that much because Dailiner is still the best card ever printed in this clan, I would say, in terms of premium viability. But Daikaiser is good because this gives us access to Daikaiser Leon in those specific matchups where tanking isn't really cutting it and you're not seeing your Linkas in order to go for the, you know, X Gallop with the potential guard break from the Linka. With this, you can potentially ride into it and go into the Daikaiser Leon. There are some specific matchups where that's extra effective, and there's also matchups like Mega Colony where you're gonna be rewriting a lot anyway, and this is a great rewrite target if you are facing against Ghidorah. So you always have to be thinking about like how you're gonna play against that certain matchup, and it's been kind of popular lately. Maybe it's just like my community's meta that Ghidorah is like popping up a lot, but it really feels like it's becoming more and more of a threat. But the main function of Daikaiser in most other matchups is to be a threat on the rearguard circle. This is the same as in V Premium. You guys have seen the deck profile. The Daikaiser's purpose in V Premium is to stand on the rearguard circle and pressure your opponent into misplaying. And I've spoken to many people that have been testing this list and said, yeah, my opponents keep misplaying because this thing is on the rearguard circle. They commit too much to guard. They put too many PGs down. And his existence makes your opponent misplay. Like, they're already in so much pressure going up against an X Gallop with the Linka on it. This is adding even more to it, right? So I really like it. I think it's a great card to have pressure, and I've put it down to 3 copies because at first I was running Diarm at 3 copies, but I was like, this is a slow meta. We need Diarm at 4. So that's why we have Daikaiser at 3, and I think that's perfectly fine. You can test 4 as well if you wish. Moving on to the grade 2, there's been some big changes in the grade 2 list. First things first, there's no more Die Dragon. I know how many people did not like that, and I agree. It definitely needed to be cut. For Sludge. Sludge, as I've said before, best card right now. It is just so good in being able to give you a free advantage. Like, Soul Blast 1 when placed on Vanguard rearguard circle, if your opponent's grade 2 or greater, you choose one of the effects. So your opponent may Counter Blast 1, if they don't, you draw a card, or your opponent may Soul Blast 1, if they don't, they lose 5k on their Vanguard circle, which is pretty huge in Premium when they're going up against so many attacks. And if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, well, then you can use both effects, right? And if your opponent is blasting through all their Counter Blasts, then you're going to be able to use that draw skill for free. You can just build up such a huge hand with this and Zorus combined, like in one turn. It is immense. So I think Sludge needs to be run as a 4 of. It is being reprinted in the future Clan Collections, Clan Collection Volume 3 and 4, so you can pick it up there if you want it in foil, but it's already been a promo in English for quite some time, so you can already find it pretty easily, I would say, in the current state of things. Moving on, there's another repetition from last time. We were running 3 copies of the Grand Wisdom. This is the best countercharger in the clan right now, I would say. When it attacks, if you're a grade 3 or greater, give him 4k at the end of the turn, put him into the soul and countercharge 1. As I said before, he doesn't have to be on the field in order to countercharge. You can overcall him with your Geomaglass or whatever. Like, it's completely fine. You're just basically using him to get that countercharge at the end. And he's very important because if you don't see him during a game, he can kind of, you know, you just kind of run out of CB because you're CBing for Dizoris, for X Gallop, for like random other cards, you know, Geomaglass. Like, there's so many things, and you want to afford the CB for Stark later, so making sure to have him is important. But I think he's fine as a 3 of because of the fact that he doesn't really do much in the early game. In the early game, you're not CBing that much. It's only like on turn 4 that it's like perfect, or like your first strike turn, you can refund that 1 CB paid for the Geomaglass. So he's a great card. It's just a common, so make sure you pick it up. I think it is really great. Another important thing is that you can build premium DP in so many different ways. Like, you can build it with Zeal focus, you can build it without Daikaiser, with Daikaiser, you can build it with a heavier Daikaiser focus as well. So my list is very much like still a Dailiner list, but just with the new cards adapted. And then this was a really interesting tech from Ashwin, which is 2 of the Die Dumper. So why Die Dumper and why 2 copies? So Die Dumper is an interesting idea where it's not so much for his rearguard circle skill, but for his Vanguard circle skill. And so his Vanguard circle skill is all your grade 3 units get plus 10k shield. It's literally Dailiner. The main focus, or the main reason why you play this card, is to essentially be able to survive against those like super aggressive decks that try to kill you while you're on turn 2. Because yes, Heal Guardians are good in giving you that plus 10k buff, but you do have quite a few games where your hand is just clogged with grade 3s and their extra shield is not going to go online until the next turn. And sometimes you just want to pitch them away, right? Sometimes you need to pitch them away to survive, and this already make you have 25k Heal Guardians on as early as turn 2. So this is kind of your like ideal grade 2 ride against some matchups, and even if you don't, the rearguard circle skill basically says that, you know, if he attacks, you can give him plus plus 10k, but then retire him. So on the Geomaglass turn, that's kind of nice because you can swing with him for 20 and then retire him in order to just basically call something from the top of your deck on top of him, which is great. And usually it's going to be a grade 3 that will then give you the intercept later on as well. So this is a really cool tech by Ashwin that I adapted myself, and I find it really, really cool. So just huge props to Ashwin, honestly, for enlightening me on this, because it's a very, very cool card. And it's just a rare, so it should be pretty easy to pick up for you guys as well. Moving on to the grade 1, this is of course where we have some new additions, and of course we cannot not be playing Mr. Die Prop. Now of course this means that our optimal grade 1 ride from the past, which was the Die Scooper, is cut. Unfortunately, he was a great card, and some people still run him because of the ability to look at the top 7 to find your Dailiner, but this is kind of the opposite, where Mr. Die Prop says when you ride him, you can put a normal unit from your hand to the bottom of your deck to draw 1. So keep in mind, it has to be a normal unit. Don't put your Heal Guardians back, don't put your Orders back if you run any. You have to put a normal unit. And on top of that, if you put a grade 3 normal unit for this cost, then you can actually draw another one, so you draw 2. This is really good. Like this, you can't dance around this fact. This is insanely good, because if your hand is clogged up by, let's say, like Die Arms in a matchup where they're not going to come online or you don't need them for a while, just put it away, right? If you got Dizauruses, too many Dizauruses early, that can really hurt, because you want to see them on like turn 4. Or if you got a really strong first ride, Excalibur or Stark, then sure, that can also work. But you don't want to see them until later. But you want to draw into stuff like the Dailiner, draw into stuff like the Sludge that can draw you more cards. So he's really, really important. And on top of that, he also has a once per turn Soul Blast 1 to give you Vanguard plus 5k for every force marker on the Vanguard circle. Now, unless you roll Daikaiser, you're usually just going to have 1, but it's still an extra 5k that can sometimes be just what you need to hit the power threshold for stuff like the Excalibur. Just keep in mind that there's people playing stuff like Shirayuki, and that can definitely counter the power gain of your deck, so be careful with that. But I've managed to claw my way out of those matchups too. By the way, I should probably say this. If you want to see gameplay for this deck, I've streamed Premium quite a few times on my Twitch channel, and I usually play this deck at least a few times, or if not the whole time. So if you want to check it out, make sure you check out my Twitch channel, because I do play these decks that I show off quite often. So I think it's a good experience for everyone. Moving on, we play 3 copies of Commander Laurel, the V-Series one. This one I've talked about a lot in every single deck profile. It doubles your Excalibur, it doubles your Stark, this, and gives an extra crit, so that obviously can just win you games outright, and it's a very important tool. Like, the nice thing is you can just rest stuff like your Sludge and then overcall it, rest your Linkas and then put them into the Soul for their skill. It's just a great card overall, and there's like little to no reason to not run it. And then we have my 2 1-of grade 1s here, which is of course still the Weaking and the 1 Enigma Calm. Weaking is getting worse and worse because now we want to be Soul Blasting for the Sludge, but we don't have any more Soul Blast for Die Brave or Die Dragon anymore, so that kind of balances that out. And we can still Soul Charge a fair bit, purely because like Linka goes to Soul, and then if we have to go into Dimax DX, if we get damage denied, we can also convert that Soul into more shield. Weaking has still won me games just by tanking out like that 1 key turn, so I still like to run as 1-of, and 1 Enigma Calm because it's the best recurring PG in Dimension Police, and so I think that it's important to run it as a 1-of. And now of course, the biggest upgrade to this deck possible that everyone was probably very, very excited about is the one and only Heal Guardians. So Heal Guardians, what do? They're grade 3s, heal triggers and 15k shield. What a shocking development. And of course, because they're grade 3s, that means Dailiner and Geomaglass will be buffing them even more. And so what does it do? It says when you place it on Guardian Circle, if you have not ridden a grade 3 yet this game, you can choose and use one of the following. 1, for the rest of this turn, your Vanguard gains plus 10k power. Or you can choose one of your opponent's attacking units, and for that battle, it loses 2 critical. Of course, this is a very important survival tool, and even if you don't use them before you ride grade 3, these will be 25k shields on turn 3. And if you roll Geomaglass, they will be 35k shields. And in the late game, they can go up to 45k shield. I don't think there's any G guard we have that guards for 45. Like, you genuinely want to hard guard with this rather than G guarding if you have reached 4 face-up Geomaglasses. That's how good this card is. And on top of that, if we're getting completely damage denied and we don't have a single CB to our name, you can call this guard from hand and then deal yourself a damage, so now you can use your Excalibur. That's great. You can use your Geomaglass to set it up, right? They damage denied, you give you 0, no problem. Call this down. You got damage now. Like this card, lifesaver. Absolute lifesaver in this deck. Also, yes, because I'm using Japanese proxies, I just took them out of my Japanese V Premium deck, so I'm expecting my English Clan Collection stuff to come in soon, so I didn't want to like re-sleeve all my Japanese cards from my Japanese V Premium deck, so please understand. One Brand Gate Over Trigger because this can win you games. I've already told you stories about this. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It's a must-have in my opinion. The rest of the triggers are pretty straightforward. We're gonna play 3 of the Draw PGs because we play 1 of the Enigman grade 1s. Then, of course, we play 4 of the Stride crits because we would rather discard this than a grade 3 to Stride, simply because this is less shield that we're losing than discarding a grade 3. What a universe we live in. And finally, I've talked about her enough, 4 of the Linka because she gives your X-Gallop the guard break ability, and even if you're not an X-Gallop, you can actually just cycle her, like put her into your soul and draw a card. Still good, still good. It's just that you need to have a burst ability Vanguard to give it the guard break skill, but you can still use her to cycle otherwise, which is perfectly fine. And of course, our starter is the Goyusha. Use whatever V-Series starter you want, but the quick shield and the extra draw is still very, very important. Now then, moving on to the G-Zone, there have been some changes. So starting off, 2 X-Gallops. Now, I've put this down to 2 because I've mentioned this in past deck profiles as well. You don't really go into the third. Usually you go through 2 of these and then you either try to finish the game with Stark or you've already won the game on the second one, right? Or like, you know, you went to the Geomagnets a couple times or 1 time at least. So it's a little bit different, but of course he's still a great card. You know, when he attacks, if he's 40k power or greater, you can count +1 and flip a G unit face up, and then he gains +1 drive for that battle. And then of course, if his power is 80k or greater, you can stand him after that battle, but he loses his 4 drives. Of course, if you give him bonus drives with the Daisaurus, he will keep those. So he's a great restander, just so much pressure and usually game winning. And his GB3 lets him get +10k power for every face-up G unit, which is also very, very good. And you know, if you go first, just G-Guard up, and then you'll have a very strong X-Gallop turn right after that. So he's a very good stride that we want to play as a 2 of. Usually either first stride or your second stride. Otherwise, your first stride is going to be the GO Maglass that we've talked about so much. In the G-Zone and face-up in the Vanguard circle, he has the skill that all your grade 3s on rearguard circles and guardian circles get +5k power and +5k shield and intercept, and this stacks for every face-up copy that you have of him in the G-Zone, which is very, very good. So of course, when you have 4 face-up, there'll be a +20k shield to your grade 3s with a +10 from Dailiner, that is 30k shield grade 3s. And when he attacks on Vanguard circle, count +1 and flip a G unit face up. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck, call 2 from among them to rearguard circles, shuffle your deck, and he gets crit +1 for every grade 3 you have on the board, which of course can win you the game on that very turn. I have won games from my opponent 2 to passing this, and I just go like, oh word, all right, I have a bunch of crits on this thing, so power Vanguard, GG. So it's a very good card. I've talked about it enough throughout past deck profiles. You guys are probably getting sick of hearing me talk about it. And I mentioned it earlier, we do play the 2 Daikaiser Leon. Now you can choose not to play this. You don't, even if you play Daikaiser, you don't have to play Daikaiser Leon. I know he might be pretty hard to get. I haven't actually checked his price. If he is, just play the Zeal G-Guard that I've cut and play another X-Gallop. I think you'll get away just fine with that. I just like this because if I'm playing against something that's annoying and I have to rewrite a bunch like Mega Colony, this is a really nice strike to go into. Just because you can make it be high power, you can double it with the Commander Laurel, which is really sick. Like having this on a Force 2 with Commander Laurel buff in play, you can give him extra drives through the Daisaurus if you want to. You can make this into a very high pressure play and your opponent just has to basically PG and pray. And so it just kind of encapsulates the feel of Daikaiser for me. And I don't know, like if I'm playing Daikaiser in my main deck, I want to make space for Daikaiser Leon because he can steal games. Like I've played like the old Daikaiser before the V-Series one at a BCS before in Premium after the V-Series came out. And I play this card because it steals games sometimes. Right? It just steals games sometimes and it's really worth trying out. 1 Dimex DX, this is our 0 damage gaming play. Our other 0 damage gaming play is going into the Progenitor, which you don't use a skill, but you basically just to set up the G-Zone skill so you can stride for free for the rest of the game. But Dimex DX is great because we can soul in a bunch for his skill in order to, you know, call out multiple units depending on how much we have face up in the G-Zone. But the soul in skill is very nice because it gives you juice for Weaking, gives you juice for the Gale Sludge. Just a good card overall, and of course we like that very much. I play one of the GB8 because this deck can play the long game and we can hit the GB8 pretty well. Some people have criticized this in the past and I think it's still a very strong card just because it's like he swings for super lethal power himself and then he'll power up your rears like crazy for all of his criticals. And don't forget that Force 2 changes him to base critical 2, so you don't even have to have a full board if you don't need to, right? But of course that's how you reach the 80, so that's kind of what the intended use of this card. But I feel like it doesn't hurt to have it as a 1 of in my opinion. It's, let's just say it's never done me wrong, so I do recommend playing the 1 GB8 if you can have access to it. one Stark, I've said this many times, this is one of your win conditions. Like doing this with a Daisaurus plus a Laurel if you have the CD for it, it's pretty damn deadly. It's pretty damn deadly, so you do want to have it. Going into the G-Guards, we have one Atlantis Dolphin. This is the G Persona G-Guard, and of course, this is a potential countercharge as well, but we usually don't fill up our board to this extent that we hit the countercharge, only rarely. Like there have been a couple games where I did, but generally speaking, you want to be a little bit careful with what you call down, and a lot of stuff like Daisaurus goes into your soul anyway, so keep that in mind, right? So Atlantis Dolphin, run as a 1-of because it does come up sometimes. 1x Caribou, sometimes this is just the perfect number you want to be discarding for. That being said, now with the Heal Guardians, it doesn't feel as good, so you can play Zeal instead of this, but I've been finding Zeal kind of awkward in general because it's a very low shield power, and it's good against certain matchups to have that extra 5k that you can give to your Vanguard for the turn, but I've always found myself kind of like CB choked after I use that skill, because then it's like you have to really think further ahead with your Grand Wisdoms then. So, you know, fit it to your playstyle. You can play the Zeal one instead of this, but I still like the X-Caribou. And then essentially the best G-Guard that we have is the G05. This is basically a Soul Blast 1 for a 30k shield. This is, I guess, for when the Heal Guardians aren't big enough, and of course you still want to be G-Guarding purely because they get you to your high GB count, 4x Gallop and 4 Stark. And so that's basically it. That is the premium deck profile for premium DP. So here we have Daikaiser and friends united once more. It's truly a nostalgic combo to see X Gallop and Daikaiser once again together. Hope you guys liked this video and the deck profile. Let me know what you think of this setup, you know, being able to see my face and me talk about the deck and not just my hands moving and my voice speaking, being disembodied as my Twitch viewers like to call it. So please let me know your thoughts on what you think about the video, please. And also what you think about the deck, right? Because we've been testing this quite a lot and I'm very happy with the list myself. It has an obscene win rate as well. But let me know your ideas. Like, is there anything else that you've been playing? Is there anything else that you've been finding to be a bit better? Let me know your thoughts and ideas in the comments below. Also, if you haven't already, please do like the video. And if you like the content, please do subscribe. You can also check out my socials, my Twitter, Discord, Twitch, etc. in the description. So make sure you check those out as well. But on that note, that's gonna be it for me today. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.